Behind the scenes, the spider has been a pivotal character in the war for the Tangled Shore and protection of the Dreaming City. When Mara left during the Taken King, she would leave the spider in charge of the shore, and we see how that went. Syndicates and hidden operations run through fallen camps and bars. I mean, just look at his schemes like his little bird in Aldrin Sov, Mara's brother.
My little bird sure is something, isn't he? I have to imagine you share in my appreciation of fate's cruel sense of humor.
Since her return in Season of the Lost though, Mara and the Awoken have a bounty on the spider's head, and he wants to be smuggled out of the reef. In today's video, we're going to update you on what's going on with the spider, some of the new schemes he's running, and how he's made it to the last safe city on Earth, possibly smuggled here by the Drifter.
I took a few extra precautions and made some modifications to his ghost's shell. Now, if he ever flies too far from the nest, boom.
So before we get into the new Guardian Games lore, which comes from the 3 class items, let's take a look back at this paragraph from Season of the Lost, where Spider spoke to the Drifter and said this. Now that Mara Sov has returned, I think my days here in the reef might be numbered. Spider explains as he flips open a rusted panel, then keys in an access code. The doors jerk to life and slowly grind open. She may have some hard feelings over my little bird, he adds over his shoulder with a laugh. And let's be honest, she seems like the type to hold a grudge. A bright light spills past the open doors and Drifter is eclipsed by Spider's shadow. So, no, Spider says as he swivels to face the Drifter. I don't want your seal of approval. Spider steps to the side, allowing the Drifter to look more fully at what is hidden away in the hangar, a ship. I want to know if you can smuggle me out of the reef. So that is what happened in Season of the Lost. In some of the activities, like in the Blind Well, we heard Mara Sov and Petra say things like this.
Petra, what assistance has the spider offered us in this endeavor?
None, my queen.
I am not surprised. When you're through there, we will discuss this.
Oh, I wholeheartedly agree. The spider may claim to be the shore's only law, but there is one ruler of the reef. It's time we remind him of that fact.
So they obviously do not like the spider at this point. She left him in charge of things like the Tangled Shore when she was gone, and he kind of messed that up and turned on her. So Spider wanted to be smuggled to the city by the Drifter, and that may have happened. Let's take a look at the new lore now. Prakash and his Awoken bodyguard Tolnik had been watching the crowds of bettors come in and out of the Elixni quarter for an hour. Clearly, whoever was stealing their business was gaining momentum. The bookmaker spotted a fire team of warlocks wafting down the street like a perfumed breeze. He approached them with his most disarming smile. Hey, you guys are warlocks, right? Prakash feigned a slight bumpkin accent. The leader, a shadebinder, held out his hand and summoned a shimmering crystal out of thin air. What tipped you off? He smirked. His teammates posed smugly behind him. It was your, fancy bracelets, Prakash replied, pointing to the warlock's arm. That's a Celestine bond, goober, the posing Dawnblade sneered. Neat. I just got here from the farm, Prakash said, leaning into his plucky yokel act. I want to bet on the warlocks to win the Guardian Games, because you guys are obviously the toughest and most dangerous class. Behind him, Tolnik faked a coughing fit to hide a guffaw. You're smarter than you look, the shadebinder sniffed. The problem is, Prakash went on, I don't know where to place my bet. Do you know any bookers around here? The Dawnblade rolled her eyes. They're called bookies. Wow, Prakash replied. You guys are so sophisticated. Just show this to one of the fallen, the shadebinder offered, and they'll point you in the right direction. He handed Prakash a scrap of paper. Now step aside, he continued. We have to meditate in the nature of unbeing before we get drunk tonight. The trio pushed past Prakash, floating their way toward the tower. The bookie made a rude gesture at the retreating fire team and walked back to Tolnik. They looked down at the calling card. It was worse than they feared. Emblazoned across the paper was the emblem of a black spider. Prakash was relieving himself against the base of the tower when his bodyguard Tolnik gave a sharp whistle. The bookie hurriedly arranged himself and whirled around to find a trio of hunters walking through the courtyard. Tolnik kept his eyes on the fire team while whispering from the side of his mouth, "You're still unzipped." Prakash scoffed. "Worry about them, not my... Alphanus too, good to see you." The bookie suddenly shouted in greeting as one of the hunters approached. "Come to put a few more engrams on tonight's matches?" The fire team leader rested his hand coolly on his sidearm. His compatriots lollygagged in the courtyard, juggling knives back and forth. "Actually, I've come to call off our bets," Alphanus II said casually. Prakash furrowed his brow. "Why's that? It's not like you to miss the opening night of the games." The hunter shrugged. "We got better odds elsewhere." Tolnik's eyebrows shot up. Prakash blinked slowly as if he'd been slapped. In the courtyard, the two hunters began to bicker. They flung their knives back and forth with increasing ferocity. Prakash recovered and continued nonchalantly. "Yeah, sure thing, Alfie." He tapped the datapad on his arm. "There, all your bets are off." The hunter eased his hand off his sidearm. "Thanks, Kesh." Behind him, one of his teammates yowled as a knife pierced his thigh. Alphanus II rolled his eyes. "What the hell are you idiots doing?" he shouted over his shoulder. "He stabbed me," the injured hunter hollered. "Not my fault you can't catch," his juggling partner smugly replied. The wounded guardian ripped the knife dramatically from his thigh and held it aloft. "Shatter dive!" he screamed as he launched himself at his assailant. The pair fell to the ground, wrestling over the bloody knife. Alphanus II dove into the fray, trying to break it up. Their ghosts materialized above them, shouting in tiny voices. Tolnik shook his head in disbelief as the trio rolled on the ground, spamming one another with melee attacks. Prakash leaned over and muttered, "Let's find out who's biting our business. We may need to send a message." Tolnik nodded slowly. "I'm on it, boss." Prakash sauntered into the bar wearing Fellwinter's helm and a Warbeast leather coat. He wanted these guardians to know he meant business. Tolnik, his gigantic bodyguard, eyed the crowd warily. They approached a fire team of hulking titans, whose seats were crammed next to the bar top, obviously blocking the way to the bathroom. Their hands clenched into meaty fists as the pair neared. "At ease, guardians," Prakash raised his hands in mock surrender. "Next round's on me." The titans relaxed, their chairs creaking audibly beneath them. "Good to see ya," the sentinel rumbled. "Figured you was mad 'cause we called our bets off." "Nothing personal," he shrugged. "Of course not," Prakash replied as he squeezed into an empty seat between them. Tolnik leaned against the wall, arms folded across his chest. "But it does make me wonder," the bookie continued, "where you're taking your action." "Well, we got great odds from this really big guy," the Sunbreaker said. "Had a deep voice and a weird helmet." "Oh yeah?" Prakash said with a feigned disinterest. "Lots of people have weird helmets." "Yeah, but this guy's the only one I've ever met with 4 arms and no legs," the sentinel said. "His ghost must be a real joker." "Wait, he had 4 arms? You're telling me this guy's a Lixney?" Prakash shot Tolnik a frown. "I ain't licking nothing," the sentinel scowled. Prakash rolled his eyes. He was fallen. This was the Bata district, right? The moment stretched on as the titans struggled to catch up with the obvious. "Oh damn, Maurice," the Sunbreaker finally exclaimed as the light went on for her. "That explains the weird porcupine dudes." The sentinel shook his head. "I would have never guessed they were aliens. What great disguises." Prakash pinched the bridge of his nose. "Next time you place a bet, maybe try someone with a normal amount of arms, okay?" The Sunbreaker nodded. "I hear you, Kesh. Forewarned is forearmed, right?" So there we have it. Those stories are pretty cool, and thank you to my friend Schleeg and iBeakers for helping me film these little skits. I always like to do these instead of just throwing a wall of text up there, so hopefully it was a little more interesting. So that first paragraph I read, the spider wanted to be smuggled in by the drifter, and it seems that may have happened. We don't know if it was the drifter, but the spider is now in the city, and he's stealing some business from Prakash here, booking bets for the Guardian games. Now this is not confirmed, but it would be pretty cool if maybe next season there was another decision like there was in season of the Drifter, maybe siding with the Vanguard or the Drifter and the Spider. When you think about it, it makes sense that these two characters would work together. They are very similar in personality and needs, and they're not afraid to backstab somebody to get the job done or to get paid. Will this lead into next season? Maybe, maybe not, but this story definitely isn't over. If you remember back even further, Spider actually sent a spy to the Batsa ruins. This was to scout out what was going on with the House of Light, and the Spider kinda wanted to know if he could take this place over. But the Spider's acquiescence would not be so easily bought. In fact, Ahra thought the Spider could probably own this settlement within a year. The generosity and goodwill of House Light would soon crumble to greed and hubris, as they all did. And once Spider's syndicate had a foothold, they would make the Vanguard pay. In glimmer, weapons, ether, and blood. Anyway, Guardians, that's all we got for today's video. Let me know in the comments down below what you think is going on with the Spider, and if we may see them next season. If you'd like to see some more Destiny lore and mysteries just like this video, please be sure to subscribe to the channel. Anyway, I thank you very much for watching, and I'll catch you Guardians in the next one.